So this video is about bank rules or banking rules. Banking rules are settings that we can set up inside of our online banking or our bank feeds that allows us to do the data entry or recognize some of the categories a lot faster. So I'm kind of gonna walk you through the rules only. We have other videos that are about the bank feeds themselves. So this is 100% focused on the bank rules. Okay, so I'm in banking here and in QuickBooks Online, and I could choose, which account I want to work with. Could be my MasterCard, my checking account, my Visa, whichever I want. Inside of bank feeds here, a couple of the structural pieces. We have the date of the transaction, we have the description, we have the payee, we have the category that QuickBooks is suggesting in this case, the dollar amount. Now, none of these things have been applied by the rules yet. Okay, whenever something is being applied by the rules, you're going to see a button, green button there that says the word rule. But QuickBooks is using his information from other QuickBooks users and maybe some information they have in their own internal database to automatically give you some suggestions for these things. But the payee is not set up, so we're going to need the bank rules to do that. So first, let's talk about this description here. Anytime you see the word description, this could be what comes from the bank, or also could be QuickBooks Online's translation or cleaned up version of what came from the bank. So sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that is a bad thing. I'm going to click on the gearbox here on the top right on the gearbox, and then I'm going to click on show bank details. And what this is going to do is it's not going to show me the cleaned up version of it. It's going to show me the actual information that's coming from the bank. So if you notice here, Publix says number 21, and then the Home Depot says 6326. If I uncheck bank details, I don't get the numbers, I don't get the DAW for Home Depot. So basically, QuickBooks doesn't attempt to clean this up for you. However, I like to see them in raw format because I think it does help me understand what I'm going to do, especially when it comes to the bank rules. So the bank rules are somewhere where I can tell QuickBooks, for example, you see all these Publixes here. I can say, look, there's a Publix here 21, Publix 21. So I guess that's the same store. The Publix is a supermarket in Florida. So I guess that's the store that I go to every single time. And you can see, oh, there it is. There's Publix 583. So I'm going to show you this example with the different Publixes. So let me click on bank detail there so I resort them, and you're going to really appreciate the power of bank rules when you see these different stores. So check this out. So let's say, for example, that this Publix 21 is a supermarket close to my house, and every time I go here, this is not a business expense and this is really a personal expense. However, this Publix here, 583, it's a public supermarket right in front of my office. And whenever I go there, it is truly an office expense. So I can actually take what's seemingly the same vendor, but I can take this number coding as the way I can tell QuickBooks Online which transactions are categorized one way or the other. So let me go ahead and click on Publix, this one that says Publix 583. I'm going to create a payee here. And if it's not in my database, I'm going to go ahead and create it. And then I'm going to put by the office. Okay, I normally wouldn't type by the office there, but I just want to make it easier to understand by creating a vendor called the Publix by the office. Okay, so this one that's Publix by the office, this one is going to be a category, let's call this office supplies. Okay, so office expenses. So let's say I do cleaning supplies and things like that. Now, one of the drawbacks here is that QuickBooks Online already automatically assumed that this other Publix 21 is the same thing. So we're going to use bank rules to avoid this from happening. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here where it says edit this setting. And basically before I click add, I'm going to tell QuickBooks Online exactly how I expect the rules to be created. So I'm going to click on edit this setting, and then it says, look, do I want to leave this on categorize or do I want to create a custom rule? That's what I want to do. I want to create a custom rule. So I'll click on create custom rule. It's going to take me to a new screen. This is the rule screen. I'm going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this Publix, I'm going to call it office. Okay, that's the name of the rule itself. And then it says, look, on the description, what am I looking for? Am I looking for just the word Publix and then make it this payee and this category? I would say yes. However, remember that I need this to be 583 in order for it to be categorized under Publix by the office. So that means every other Publix is going to be a personal expense. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. Okay, and there it is. And then I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm going to see if my Publixes are still there. Okay, so when I click on this Publix 583, and that should have taken the rule. Let me just go into rules here. Let me go to manage rules, and let me make sure that rule was fully saved. Okay, there it is. Let me click on edit. So there is Publix number 583. That should be okay. That should actually grab it. So let me click on save, and I'm gonna go back to my bank feeds and then scroll down, and that should have grabbed it right there and there. Let me just double check. I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this outright. So I'm gonna hit copy, and then I'm gonna go back into rules, manage rules, just double, triple checking that every single character, every single text is the same. So I'm going to click on edit. And this is a good exercise, right? Because sometimes the rules are not 100% as precise as you may expect them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then here it says bank text or description. So we'll play with these two. If it doesn't grab it on the description, we'll grab it under bank text. So we'll check. So let me hit save. Let's see if it grabs this one. Go back to bank and credit cards, and let me see, go down, and it hasn't taken it yet. Let's keep figuring this out, because it's really important. Bank rules can be tricky. So in this particular case, I'm looking at, this is a credit card, not a bank. So maybe my bank rule was set up only for banks. That's actually a very common situation. So I'm going to click here on edit. And yes, there it is. That was my issue. Actually, no, that's selecting all banks and credit cards as well. So let's try something different. Let's do bank text instead, and then we'll click on save. And then if this doesn't work, we'll try one more. Click back. Oh, there it is. So that it took it. Okay. So sometimes you want to double check whether it's going to be part of the description or part of the bank text, but that took it right there and there. Great. So I wanted to show you how that worked and all the multiple variables that could cause it not to work. So I'm not going to hit add yet. Okay. Won't hit add yet. Let me go ahead and create the rule for Publix 21. So let me click on this one. I'll type here Publix. This time I should create a different vendor, because you normally want to tie a vendor with a particular category. So I'm going to put this personal, okay? And I'll create a new vendor. And let's say these ones are going to be shareholder distribution or dividend. I'm not sure what's the name of the equity maybe, or capital. Okay, I'm not sure what's the equity account for these. So I'll just create an account called personal expenses. Okay, and then basically anything that's not really a business expense, I'll put it under equity. I'll have to reorganize that later, and I'll call that personal expenses as owner's equity, and I'll hit save and close, and there it is. My bank rule is being set up. Now, very important, if I click add here, there's not going to be an implicit rule. QuickBooks is going to create a rule behind the scenes that I really can't control. So I always recommend going into edit this setting and creating the custom rule from here. Okay, really recommend that. So let me just call this Publix. And notice on this one, I'm not putting number 21. I'm not. Because really, I don't care. There's only one Publix by the office, and that's the only one that's really business expense. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then that rule is created. So I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm going to see how everything was categorized, and we notice, yep, Publix 21 was coming into personal expenses, and Publix 583 is going into office expenses. Good. So my rules are working, and they're working the way I want them to work. Let me look at these rules real quick and click on Manage Rules. And then the ordering of the rules is extremely important. And the reason why I tell you that is because when I look at my first rule, I have the word Publix and then the number, right? And so that's going to grab that, no problem. And then the second rule has just the word, not that one. Let me just click on the second one. Second rule, the first one, has just the word Publix. So sometimes you want to be careful with the ordering of the rules because it will take the top priority first. So if I have two rules that could be potentially conflicting, I want to make sure that the one that would supersede the rule is the one that goes in the top or in the bottom. So just keep that in mind. That's extremely important when setting up the order of the rules themselves. Okay, so I see that my categories are still set up. Now check this out. Check what just happened. Publix 583 now got recategorized to personal, not to office expense how I did it before, and that's because of the order of the rules. So let me scroll down and go back to manage rules and change the orders and give this office priority over the other Publix, right? So I'm giving the office priority. That means it's going to pass by the first rule first and the second rule second. So when I click on bank and credit cards and I go down, I'm going to see that now it's going to respect the rules based on the ordering of the rule. Now, trust me, this is I know this is a lot of stuff to digest, but once you master these rules, you will have total control of how this information gets put into QuickBooks. So I'm going to go ahead and click there on recognized. That way it's filtering only the things that have been changed by rules. I'm going to click on this little select all button up here, and then I'll click on batch actions and click accept. Right, that's part of the online banking video I have in my channel that explained that portion. So let's do a couple of other rules here. So let's look at Amazon, for example. So we have Amazon Marketplace payments. It looks like all three of these have the same vendor name. Then I have Amazon.com. Then I have Amazon Prime. So we see these are all Amazon, but they have slightly different vendor names, and that's something that we could play with. That is possible. So let's do a rule from scratch by going up to manage rules, and then we'll kind of just build it from here, and then we'll click on new rule, and then we'll call this Amazon, and then bank text we'll put here Amazon. That's why I'm only interested on the word Amazon. And then I'm going to create a vendor called Amazon, and it looks like I'm sort of repeating Amazon everywhere. Yep, because up here this is the name of the rule. Up here this is the text that I'm searching within my bank downloaded transactions, and this is the actual vendor or customer's name that I'm attaching the transaction to. So for the categories, I'm going to go ahead and put office expenses, and I'm going to put a memo here called classified by rules. Okay, so what I like about this is that when I do this and I put that memo there, I'll know that I didn't manually select the category. It means that QuickBooks did this for me. So I find that to be very, very useful to have that text added there, because I'll know when something was really added by QuickBooks bank feeds, just in case I have to correct any errors. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and then I'm going to go back into my bank feeds, and we're going to see that all these things here, all of them are reclassified by the rules. But I also want to show you something pretty interesting. Let's say that anything that's under $100, I'm going to categorize it as office expenses, and everything that's over $100, I'm going to classify it as something else. So let me go back into the rules here, and I'm going to edit this rule, and then I'm going to create some internal conditions here. So I'm going to say, look, I'm going to have multiple conditions here. I'll click on split. And then for this case, this is by amount numbers. So this is really split's a little bit different than the multiple conditions. So I'll show you both. So what the split does is allows me to say, 50% of this expense is going to be office expenses, and maybe the other 50 is going to be a personal expense, right? That's maybe one of the things that we do with the splits. But I want to do something different having to do with that. But this could be one of the options, right? I could split things by percentages, but let's say that's not what I'm trying to do. So let me just get rid of the splits here, and let's go to this condition here that says add line. So I'm going to click on a new condition, and then I'm going to click on amount, and then I'm going to say if the amount is greater than, and then we'll put here $100, then I want this to be the same vendor, Amazon, but I want it to be a different category called Office Expenses Review. So basically, I create a category called Office Expenses Review, which is actually designed for things to be automatically classified, but something that I want to see on my financial statement that maybe I want to look at one by one to double check what this is going to be. Let me go ahead and hit save here. And then I'm going to duplicate this rule because remember this rule, it's only for transactions over $100. So if I actually go back into here, I'm going to see that only one of my Amazon was classified. None of these are classified here because they didn't fall into the rule. So I'm going to duplicate the same rule and change the dollar amount, and that would allow me to get there. So let me go back to manage rules, and then I'm going to right click on this little button here, not right click, but click on the triangle, click on copy, and then we'll call this Amazon under 100. And then on this condition here, I'm going to say this is less than, and then we'll put 99.99, whatever, right? Okay, so I'll click on this one. This is not going to be under office expenses review. This will be under just regular office expenses. And then I'll hit on save. I'll go back into my bank feeds, and then I'm going to see how some of them are going to go into the review account and some of them into the regular office expenses account. And I'll show you there's a lot of value to this. Trust me, there's a lot of value to this. So I'll show you why that's important. I'll click here on recognized, and then I'll click on this little checkbox here and click on accept. And then later on, I can go into my reports and I can click on all those office expenses with review in parentheses. And that could be one way for me to do a hybrid of having QuickBooks automatically reclassify things for me, or I can uh, still have a mechanism for me to go back and review the transactions that are over a certain dollar amount that maybe I don't want to, trust bank feeds to just do 100% of the work for me. All right, let's do a couple of other examples here. I'm going to click here onto Chase checking, and then we're going to see these are all the things that were downloaded from the bank, and then we're going to see all the things that are being classified here. So some of the things when I click on recognized, we see that some of these payments that are coming in are being automatically matched to a particular invoice. Now, bank rules don't really affect that part. Matching really has to do with the fact that there's an invoice amount for the same amount as a deposit, and QuickBooks is trying to say, look, maybe these two things click together, but it's not 100% related to bank rules. Bank rules are a lot more useful for expenditures than anything else. Now check this out. When I downloaded stuff from my bank account, it didn't have the description was a lot different. Look, it still says Publix, but it has different numbers. But because I told it anything that has the word Publix in it, go ahead and just recognize as personal expenses, so I can just recognize these if I want to. Now something that's really nice is I can click on the first one, and then I can hold my control key and then click on the next one, actually not the control key, the shift key, and click on the last one, this one here, and then all of them will get selected at the same time, and I click on batch actions and click accept. But let's do other examples. Let me click here on all, and then I'm going to scroll down and see a couple of things here. So I'm seeing all these deposits coming in. Now I could, if I didn't have invoices, I could also take these deposits and automatically book them as income or something like that. But that's only when I don't have underlying invoices that I need to match. So if that was the case, I could use bank rules to also speed up all these information about deposits. So let me copy here this ATM bank deposits text, and I'm going to scroll up and click on bank rules, and then I'm going to create a new rule called ATM check deposit. I'll just paste the bank text in it, the same thing, and then under payee I will put ATM deposit. I know that's not really a customer's name, but I'll just put their ATM deposit, and then I'll put here unknown client. Okay, that means that we're not really taking too much into consideration who the particular customer is. So I'll create that as a customer, and then I'll click save, and then we'll put this into sale of product income, right? And then I'll put under memo auto classified by rules. Again, I talked about this earlier. I kind of want to know when something I classified by myself or my bank rules did it automatically. So here it says, is this for money in or out? Very important. If I make this my rule for money out, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to click on save and then I go back to my bank rules. None of those deposits are going to be recognized. See, none of these deposits are recognized because I told it this is only for money coming out. Now these are deposits, money coming in. So I have to go back and modify my rules and make sure that this ATM deposit rule is not for money out, is for money in. Now, unfortunately, I can't have rules that are both for money out and in, unfortunately. So there is kind of a workaround, and I'll show you what I do is I'll create one and I'll put in parentheses, and then I'll click save. And then I will right click, or not right click, but click on the triangle, click on copy, and then I'll put here out, and then I'll make this for money out. And this is one way I can create a rule that has this exact same information that I created, but it's, if it contains the same text, could be for money in or money out. Of course, ATM check deposit, right? That's never going to be money coming out, right? Unless somehow a transaction bounces, and that's the name that they give it, but whatever. So this is, we see the rules in effect coming into all these deposits, right? And actually, all these recognize. So I'm going to click on the first one, scroll down, hold the shift key, click on the last one. There it is. All these are being recognized, and I'll click on accept. And I'm kind of a buff of being accepting things as you go. I really like doing that because it just feels like the workflow is a lot faster. Okay. The one more example here with a BMW Financial Services, for example. So I'm going to click on this one, and then I'll do BMW, and I'll click on add, and then I'll click on save. Now this time around, I am not going to sort of go out of the way to create the rule. I'm just going to let QuickBooks create that implicit rule behind the scenes. So we'll put this automobile expense, and then I'll click on add. So I actually did not create the explicit rule, and I did not click on edit settings. So I'll click on add, and I'll show you what happens. So QuickBooks automatically reclassified my two other BMW payments, but it doesn't say here rule. It's just in green. So whenever you see something classified automatically like this that doesn't have the word rule in it, that means that QuickBooks is using its internal memory to do the classifications for you. And if I go into my bank rules here, I actually cannot modify it. So this is one of the dangers of creating those implicit rules, that I really don't have the chance to go back and say, oh, wait a second, I really don't want that to be auto expense. I want it to be something else. I really can't go back and change the rule. I would have to actually go into one transaction and change the nature of it, right? Whatever it is. I'll change it to this, and then click on save, and then in the internal rules will save it. But again, it doesn't put it into a place where I can actually create the rules. This is why I actually recommend that every time you do this, you create a category, select the transaction, and then click on the little button there that says edit this setting, and click on create custom rule, and just put here BMW, and have this be an actual implicit rule that is part of my rules list. Okay, that to me is extremely important because I want to be able to control how these things get categorized, because QuickBooks is not perfect, and sometimes in an attempt to categorize things for you automatically, it may recognize things wrong. Now let's do an example of where it could possibly happen. So check this out. We have online payment to a business line of credit, and we have this one that ends in 2001 and this one that ends in 2004. These are actually two separate loans, two entirely separate loans I have in QuickBooks. But what's the problem? I'll click on this one, and then I'll call this Chase line of credit 2001. I'll create that as a vendor. And the reason why I know it's going to happen is because there are way too many common characters, and QuickBooks is automatically thinking that this particular loan 2001 is the same one as this 2004. So that's going to cause a huge problem. Let's just call it here. I'll create an account called loan 2001, and then I'll create this as a long-term liability, for example. So that's the challenge that I have is that sometimes QuickBooks is smart, but it's not smart enough to know that one character difference in this case could be an entirely different transaction. So if I just click on add and I say okay, and then I trust what QuickBooks is doing, and I click here, and I accept them, I'm going to have a problem where we're going to see different loans, right, being affected, but only one account is being hit in my chart of accounts because QuickBooks just didn't know any better. So this is where I'll tell you explicitly create the rules by putting here 2004, and then I'll create a different loan here called 2004. I'll create that loan as well. Let's say this one is a current liability, right? And then I'll click on edit setting, create custom rules. I'm actually going out of my way to make sure create custom rules. See, this is using Biz Rev Credit is using very, very generic text. So I'm going to go to add line and then also put 2004. So I'm saying you must find this info and also find this info for this to work. So I'm going to put here loan payment 2004. And then I'm saying if you see that text and that text both put together, we're going to categorize it to this loan here. And I'll click on save. And let me scroll down to make sure that worked. Okay, there it is. So you see, they recognize these. And then for this one that ends in 2001, I am also going to, let me take that out and put it again. I'm also going to recategorize it. So all you have to do is just, I'll select something else and then select it again, right? And then I'll choose something else here and then I'll select it again. Okay, this is just so it refreshes and recognizes something new. Okay, and then I should have the edit this setting button here. Click on edit this setting, create the custom rule. Again, this is loan 2001 payment. And then I'll go to add line, make sure I explicitly add the numbering there, and then click on save. And then we should see now QuickBooks recognize them correctly, right? And you gotta pay attention, especially with bank transfers, credit card payments, payments to particular vendors that have the same sort of text coming out. You want to pay close attention to that to make sure these things are being matched correctly. All right, I think that should be sufficient to give you a deep understanding on how rules work. And let me know if you have any more questions about it. If you want more videos about rules, if you think we should do more in-depth videos about bank rules, let me know and kind of post in your comments what are the type of issues that you're having with bank rules. Thank you very much.